I know you've been doing this for quite a while, so can you tell me about how you got started in pottery and why clay as your medium?
I'm dyslexic, and after being held back in first grade, I went to a school that had a program for dyslexic students. And then I came in one day, and there was a tabletop wheel. And I asked her if she would teach me how to use it. And she looked at me and she said, "No, it's really difficult, and if I let you do it, all the other kids are going to want to do it." And she said, there's a college called Goucher in Baltimore, and she said, they have a summer program, and I applied to it, and you would go in for a specific medium. So I went in for clay, and I learned to throw at that time. So I was 13 years old. And so that was sort of the start of that decision to get into clay.
Now, some of your pieces I know was something you thought of beforehand. Do some of these just kind of naturally progress, or you get in there and you end up doing something completely different than you had planned?
I don't. I think some potters have, a production potter will have maybe a group of wares that they make, and they sort of have like a certain size and shape that they make over and over. I would rather just sort of respond to what the clay is doing, and it also, I feel like it leaves me more free to experiment and think about shape and volume in the pot when I'm not having to worry about hitting a certain mark.
So you're actually a returning artist to Greenhill this year. We're very excited about all of our artists, and especially our returning artists. So when you first started at Greenhill, you were pretty fresh out of college. Did you feel like that was sort of a launching pad?
Yeah, it was huge. It was that first invitation to Greenhill. I remember it. And I think Lisa Young, my former teacher, had suggested to them that they take a look at my work, and they invited me to the winter show. But it's such a big thing when you're first out of school that to get that recognition or that sort of pat on the back. It's like, hey, you're doing a good job, and we notice you. And especially when you're working in your studio, and the day-to-day, you have very little contact with the outside world, and so you don't really know what people think about your work, or who's interested in it, or who's even seen it.
Now, when you're teaching students at Guilford, what is a concept that you want them to get out of your class? By the time they leave, what is something you want them to know or appreciate?
One of the things is to be able to look at three-dimensional objects and assess them. And I also talk to them about, I tell them at the beginning, I said, you're going to be asked to do a lot of things this semester. And you might have a choice between coming in here, working on a piece, or writing a paper. And 10 years from now, a year from now, you're not even going to care about that paper, but you're still going to have that ceramic piece, and it will live forever, and it will be in your home. And so that your emphasis should be on these things that you're going to take with you, as opposed to the papers that are going to be gone.
Like, this is tangible.
This will live with you for a friend of yours for a long time.
Well, so you make a variety of things. What are your favorite pieces to make?
Let's see. I think you had mentioned, you had sent a question about altered pieces.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably where my heart is. So I'll show one. So this is a teapot, and this was thrown on the wheel. And it's got this square shape. I've pushed the corners out in the shape, and then I've added clay back to those corners to sharpen them up to make them look like really square. So there's a lot about this teapot that looks like it hasn't been thrown. This is really like the last thing that resembles this thrown part. This is the lid and this round top, but everything else is sort of moved into a square shape. And so I enjoy the sort of like puzzle aspect of putting these things together.